Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm so glad that you could join me today. So the other day, my amazing boyfriend and I were having a discussion regarding some of the different churches within Christianity, the different denominations, and why they do different things, why their beliefs are so different, or why they're kind of viewed as not traditional or not the norm. They're kind of like those outliers, and there's a lot of things that I didn't know. And in our conversation, it just spurred an interest in me to find out more about some of these denominations. So today we're going to investigate one such group known as the Pentecostals. This is an interesting one. When you picture Pentecostals, or at least when my amazing boyfriend did, he was talking about the group that played with snakes and the group that would be miraculously healed and the group that would randomly start speaking in this like gibberish kind of language that nobody really understood. And he was just intrigued as to this group and what's really going on with them. So today's video is a learning opportunity for us all. So today we're going to look at Pentecostals. We're going to look at how it started, what they believe, and then some particular facts about their religious beliefs and how they practice it and things like that. So just to give us all a better understanding of people in the Pentecostal denomination. Okay, so this denomination actually started way back in 1867. So the first thought of it was in 1867, and that occurred at a conference meeting that was going on. It was called the National Holiness Camp Meeting Association, and it happened in Vinland, New Jersey. And at this particular meeting, there were a lot of different preachers and respected individuals in the religious community that happened to receive, or they claimed to receive, like thousands of them, claimed to receive what's known as the second blessing and sanctification. So basically, they believe that at this meeting, there was this presence, thought, idea, experience that all of them came to this understanding that there is this ability to speak in tongues, this ability to reach a new level of understanding and relationship with God that has not been attained as of yet. So some of the people that were notable at this meeting was J.H. King. He was the Pentecostal Holiness Director. So Pentecostals as a denomination didn't exist quite yet. But at this meeting, J.H. King was there. He was at the time a religious person who wasn't necessarily affiliated with any denomination, but he came to be the Pentecostal Holiness Director. And I'll talk a little bit about what holiness is and all those different things in a little while. Okay, just bear with me. Another person there was Charles Fox Panham, and he was influential in creating what's called evidence theory. So the idea that speaking in tongues was actually a representation or evidence that you were touched by the Holy Spirit. So just that correlation. He's the one that came up with that. Another individual that was at the National Holiness Camp Meeting Association was William H. Seymour. This individual was very important to the whole church starting. He was a preacher of sorts at Azusa Street Mission in LA. And Azusa Street Mission turned into a huge thing for Pentecostals. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Basically, the Azusa Street Mission was a place where they could spread the information about Pentecostals to thousands, like hundreds of thousands of people would come, and they would share information with them, and they would come specifically to LA to receive this information, and then they would return home, or their lives would be so changed that they would stay there, and they would start more churches. So Azusa Street Mission was huge, and that was William J. Seymour that started that. He was at that conference meeting as well. The other one was Thomas Ball Bonnet, and he was the father of the Pentecostal movement. So at this one meeting in 1867, there were all these people that had this idea, notion, whatever you want to call it, experience that enlightened them. And from that meeting, everything happened. Okay? So it was huge. Basically, they all agreed on what's known as Wesleyan teaching, and that basically means that if you are clean enough in heart, clean enough in spirit, you will be able to speak in tongues because the Holy Spirit will be more easily able to interact with you. So that's called the Wesleyan theory. Is basically that you have to be a good enough person. You have to be clean enough in heart and spirit and everything in order to receive the Holy Spirit. So that's where all the ideas started, okay? But at that time, the Pentecostal church denomination didn't exist. It was just this idea that came to these individuals that were at this meeting. Now, in 1901, in the great state of Kansas, in a little city known as Topeka, there was a man named Angus Osman, or Angus Osman, I'm not quite certain how to pronounce his last name. And that is the first individual who they believe really is credited for starting the Pentecostal church. That is the first individual who discovered that they had the gift of speaking in tongues. So let me set the stage for you so you can understand it. So basically what was happening is it was at a campus prayer meeting. And in this campus prayer meeting, only certain races or ethnicities were allowed inside. So Angus was not allowed inside. Angus was one of those individuals, he happened to be Black, and he was not permitted to join the prayer meeting. So he sat outside, and as he was sitting outside and listening to what he could hear, he prayed for the Holy Spirit to come upon him and that he would be worthy. And he is the first person to have been credited with being able to speak in tongues. Now, the fact that he was not allowed into the prayer meeting because of his race was instrumental in how the Pentecostals view interracial relationships, the demographics of their community now. Right now, they are the most appreciative, accepting, forward-thinking group. So they were one of the first religions that had females in positions of authority, in leadership, and preacher roles, or whatever. They fully encourage people of varying backgrounds, specifically people from the African American or Black demographics. They seem to be very drawn to the Pentecostal movement because they are very warmly received, and especially at that time, in general, if you happen to be Black in skin or brown in skin or a different ethnicity or different religion, you were not welcomed readily to most places. But the Pentecostal church flips it on its head. It is very warm, very welcoming, very appreciative of when you are there. And as soon as you come, they elevate you. They make you feel like not only are you welcomed, but oh, you are so valuable. They call each other brother and sister, and they have great respect for each other. So that's very beneficial for them, and they very much enjoyed that. So that's where that interest lies. And the speaking of tongues really comes from the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. And it's actually a term. It's about speaking in tongues, and the term is glossolalia. And it's basically speaking in tongues, that if you have the Holy Spirit within you, if you have pure enough heart, you just embody the Holy Spirit for a moment. The Holy Spirit kind of takes over your soul and your entity, which means you are able to speak in tongues for that moment. And that's why they speak in tongues. It's very similar to why they interact with serpents and things like that. They play with them to demonstrate their complete trust, their pure spirit, that with their pure spirit and their complete trust in God, they can do anything. They can speak in tongues. They can heal mysterious illnesses and injuries. They can play with snakes and not get hurt. They can do all these different things. They feel like if they believe enough, if they have it in their soul of souls, that God will protect them always. Okay? Now, what they believe is not the Trinity. They do believe in Jesus. They do believe in God. They do believe in the Holy Spirit, but they do not believe in a Trinity. They believe that each one is separate individuals with different roles. And there's also different movements within the Pentecostals that believe that each one is separate, but at the same time, they're all really just different names for Jesus. Not God, Jesus. So it's just interesting how they view things differently. Now within the Pentecostals, it is by far the fastest growing movement that originated in the U.S. Many of the other religions and movements did not originate in the U.S., but the Pentecostals did. The Pentecostals, as it's growing, it has this very personal connection. It has roots in the Methodist tradition. So if you remember back to my Christianity video, the Methodists are similar to Christianity as far as there's a hierarchy. They believe that there are certain things that you are supposed to do, but the Methodists are different from Catholicism, whereas they view that personal connection as utmost importance. Whereas in Catholicism, the utmost importance is the church, and doing things in the church is the way you get to heaven. Methodist, it's all about you and your connection. So Pentecostals is all about you and your connection to a different level. So it's all about you, your connection, but it's if you believe, if you trust, if you can be pure enough. So in that, there are different rules and requirements that they set for each other. So for example, there is no mixed swimming, so you cannot have males and females swim in the same area. They don't drink tea, they don't drink caffeinated products, they don't drink alcohol, they don't do drugs. They're very careful of those things. They are very appealing as a movement to females because they respect them right away, and they are given authority and leadership roles very quickly. They see females are the ones that kind of bring their family to a religious service, and that's one of the ways that the Pentecostal movement grows, is because they do that. They value the women so very much. The men seem to be very attracted to the Pentecostal movement because they tend to be, this was a weird statement that I found, less abusive and more responsible. So there's a tendency for males to sometimes get their ego in the way. And because of the way the Pentecostal movement and the rules and restrictions they have on how they treat each other, the men are very supportive of the females in their lives and fostering that relationship. So there will be much growth within the family because they're not spending money on going out and doing things, buying alcohol or things like that. They don't do that. So financially, from a family standpoint, they achieve success very quickly. Now, Pentecostal families tend to be very large because the Pentecostal church does not condone using birth control, particularly condoms. Condoms are only able to be used by people in the Pentecostal church, per their website, if one of the partners has HIV or AIDS. So to protect them from infecting the other person, then you are able to use a condom. But they don't encourage birth control. They want to spread the love of God, and they want to spread their mission. So one way to do that is by increasing your membership through reproducing. So that's very interesting. Another thing to note about the Pentecostal movement is that there's a big focus on the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So speaking in tongues, healing the sick, playing with serpents, like essentially having command over this level of existence, showing that you are at a higher level because you are pure in heart, pure in spirit. You can ascend to a new level. You can tame the snakes because you have a clean heart and God is with you. You can ascend to be able to speak in different languages because you have that clean heart. The Holy Spirit can enter your body as a vessel and you can do things that other people can't. That's what they believe. So there are 3 different branches within the Pentecostals, and they all have slightly different viewpoints on what their main mission is. So the first one is oneness, and that group is very focused on bringing diversity together and bringing all the people back to the Bible. Pentecostals still use the Bible. Okay, the second one is the apostic or the finished works group. So this is focused more on what have they done and why they should celebrate that and what they can do going forward. So that's just a different way to look at what they're doing. And then the last group is holiness. Holiness is really focusing more on Jesus or God and being pure in heart. They focus more on the Holy Spirit than they do focus on Jesus or God. However, they do celebrate Christmas and things like that because they do acknowledge that Jesus was the Son of God. So that's the Pentecostal group. They're very intriguing. Their origin was new to me, and just understanding a little bit more as to why do they speak in tongues? Why do they think it's necessary? Why do they play with snakes? Things like that. I love understanding more about the cultures that are surrounding us in life. I think learning is a fun thing, and hopefully you learn something as well. Until next time, bye-bye.